Dun 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 dun. Let's see when the stream pops live. It is live. Look at that. Let's scroll. There we go. Let's get the sharing link. See. Facebook. All right. So fun going live. All right. Made a post. Watch the dashboard. Oh wow, there's already 3 people watching? Holy cow. The chat is disabled, so head to the forums. Should be in the description right here. I'll be paying attention to that on the screen here. Got my other computer next to my regular computer, so we can keep track of all the funness going on. But we're basically going to dive into some Slic3r slicer things, depending on who you ask. That's what it's called. Alright. Let's see here. Let's hit a refresh on the Facebook page. How many viewers do I have? We have, let's see here, what did it say? Still have 3 watching. 3 watching. Oh. Alright. People are trying to connect to me. Oh man. Come on down. Join the fun. Remember, the chat's on the Facebook. Only because I can't keep track. You know what? Maybe I can do the chat. Let's see if I can do this. Maybe we'll turn the chat on here. I can watch both. Alright. Scroll to the right. Chat. Settings. Enable live chat. Done. Alright, so I guess I'm watching it on 2 different computers. This is fine. This is fine. Wait for a few more. Oh, 2 people watching. How do we lose somebody? We're supposed to be gaining people to watch. Well, that's going on. Let's download some models, because this computer doesn't have anything on it. This is the work computer. So, let's see here. Thingiverse. Actually, there's a few other things. Let's do to My Mini Factory. Let's go to Thingiverse. So, My Mini Factory. Let's wind that up. Log in. Alright. I should have a bunch of things here saved for later. Alright. Let's definitely download this. That's something I want to slice for sure. And let's add, let's see, still 3 people watching. Let's add, ooh, save for later. Let's, ooh yeah, this thing. I definitely want to print this thing. So download, go back. I wanted to print these little robot guys. Chest set is fine. Rat tokens. Filament. Robots. Spiral Tower is definitely something I wanted to print. Not right now. Scooby-Doo. Do love me some robots, especially moving robots. Of course, I can't download these things because they're from somewhere else. Pangolin, no. Anything else from Thingiverse I want to print? Dinosaur, Kirby. Nope. Alright. Let's go to Thingiverse. Signing in. Alright. Me. My collections. And things to make. Ooh, we'll definitely do some vases. This is a really cool vase. We'll download this. No, we're not going to tip the designer. You get nothing, Joseph. And cool soap dish. I do want to get this giant dice tower thing. Aggro Crag? No. 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 Squid Koozie, super cool. Print in place. Boy, I really don't have much saved. Have I printed everything I want? What are the hot things to download? Let's see how the channel's going for watching. Hey, it's Chris. And you see the other printers are printing in the background. Oh, 5 people. Alright. Anything cool? What are the cool things? Nope. I saw someone print this on the forum recently. That's pretty cool. What are the featured things here? Yep, secret butterfly box. Laboratory shaker, because, you know, I need something to shake my test tubes. And nope, don't need that. Can I pop this thing out? Pop out chat. Oh, there we go. That's so cool. That makes my life easier. I can hide this. Yeah, the butterfly box looks awesome. So yeah, we have Slic3r slicer here, and basically just going to do some basic stuff. So people have things they want to see how to do that I know how to do. I think the only thing I haven't really practiced is the modifier meshes, because I've never had to use them, but they sound really cool. So I don't have all my profiles on here. I just loaded. Some of these are old, some of these are new. I don't use this computer for slicing. I just kind of update this. I couldn't get here, but I couldn't. Huh. Let me try to zoom over to my other computer through this computer. No. Shows here. Huh. Worked on my laptop, Chris. Let's close that. Don't need me bandwidthing. Try mobile. Hi, Mark. Man, I'm not trying my iPhone. Let's do some things on Slic3r here. Let's load up a model. So that's the easiest thing to do. Downloads, fluid vase. Let's do a vase mode print. I just did a vase mode. Hey, Kyle. So yeah, let's do a vase mode. This is something that everyone should know how to do. I actually think I have a vase mode profile for PLA. I do. I have a PLA vase mode thing, but we'll see how we get there. We'll start with something. Let's start with Prusa's optimal things here in Prusa PLA and Prusa's Mark III thing. Hey, Gaston. And Kyle. Alright. I can't spell, but that was supposed to be everyone. So we loaded in a vase. This is actually the Prusa vase. If we zoom in here. Ah! So yeah, this is the Prusa Research vase from Thingiverse. That link would be something. I can actually get it here, and I'll post it in the comment, in the chat, or in the thing. Thingiverse, my collections, things to make, fluid vase by Joseph Prusa. It is thing number. So this is thing 1330212. Joseph added this thing 2 years ago. So let's learn how to make a vase mode profile, so we're not redoing vase mode constantly. This is a really tall vase. I don't need anything this big, but we will slice this for reals for me. So here's the new. You got two different ways of sizing. So they made a quick sizer here, where you just click this bad boy, and you can just use the corners to scale in multiple ways. And they added a rotate key, so you can grab this little bad boy and you can rotate it. I think if you pull it in, yeah, if you pull it in, it locks at each section there. Or if you pull it out here, you then have a finer, finer adjust. So yeah, those are your different options. It doesn't need to be rotated, but I will. Let me scale it back up. That's a little small. So we can look at our height here. Yeah, it's a nice feature. I like that they added this. I mean, it was from Prusa Control. But as you can tell, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to be a vase. This is going to be one solid block. Because if I hit slice now, I hit my preview here as it builds. Go, go. building, it's so huge. It's like, oh man, I have to put in 20% infill in this file. Oh. This must be a really big mesh. There's perimeters. Keep going. Keep going. Boy, we're on a fast computer too. Someone decided to use the high-end model. At least you can play around in here. You can look at the this while it's making the preview. Wow, isn't that bed nice? Super sweet. Move it around with the left click drag. Yeah, well, this is definitely not a vase. It's taking forever to load. But we'll go back to 3D. We can mess around with all that still. Oh, now it's done. Yeah. So as you can see, this is not a vase. This is a solid organic shape with a lot of triangles. That is one heck of a mesh. We don't want that. So first thing is print settings. I like to print vases quickly. You can, with PLA and PETG, easily do a 0.3mm layer height, but you can't do two perimeters. You can only do one perimeter. So we're going to go ahead and select spiral vase right away. And it tells you now, it has a warning. This is awesome. So spiral vase mode requires one perimeter, no solid. So it basically tells you what you can and can't do. Hit yes, and it does it for you. It literally unchecked everything. So it does the magic for you now in the new Slic3r. Seam doesn't matter. They should probably just make this on highlight, but infill, gone. It's 0%. Skirt and brim. Yeah, it doesn't need a skirt of 3 layers tall. Minimum fill extruder length. Boop, boop. No sport speeds. Now this is where Prusa's speeds are a little insane. This is going to use, I always forget which one is used, so I just do both. I always set perimeters and external perimeters at the same speed. Everything else doesn't matter for the actual spiraling part. You do have to worry about your infill, infill and solid infill if you do a bunch of layers. No, actually you don't, just your solid infill. Everything else doesn't matter. Perimeters, I usually print these at about 60 and 60. And if you do have some spirals that are very small, like there's the rocket ship, that can be printed in vase mode, that will have very small perimeters, so make sure that you get some small speeds here. What's funny is it says default's 15, but it was surely at 25. Infill, definitely not 200 millimeters per second. I don't know if you've heard me say this a million times or not. Very few filaments can successfully print at 200 millimeters per second on a large object. So let's make that go away. We're just going to go away. Let me get the link again. Apparently it's not working over there. So YouTube. But yeah, we're going to knock that infill speed down to 80. Not 800, 80. Solid infill, because that's what all you're going to use, 60. And top solid infill doesn't matter. Sport material doesn't matter, blah, 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 because there's no top. That's no top solid infill. Bridges doesn't matter. Travel. That really doesn't matter because we're not going to be jumping around. First layer speed, I am a 20 person. Always a 20 person. Acceleration only matters for a little bit, but since this is a vase, we don't have to really worry much about these things. Multiple shooters don't need that. Advanced. So here's something I do change. So the nice thing about vase mode is I like to have thicker lines, so that way if there is some overhang, because a lot of these will have some crazy overhangs, you can beef this up. You can actually calculator, not calendar, calendar, cool, we got a calculator. So if you have a 0.40 nozzle, your maximum that you can print with that is 1.40 0.7 times. So you can print up to a 0.68 millimeter line width with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. So we don't need to go that big, but usually I print all my vases with a 6.0, and I just change all of these except for, so first layer is going to stay at 0.42, perimeters are going to be 0.60, external perimeters are going to be, again, that doesn't matter. Infill I will leave at 4.2 and 4.2. No gas on. It actually has to be in that version because there's a setting here, so I'll show you right now. They added a printer setting menu with machine limits. So this is now where you put all of your accelerations and jerk settings. That is not in previous versions. So if you take your old one, it doesn't have these, so it's just missing completely. You'd have to write them in manually into your custom G code. So you have to put them in your start G code, which we're gonna mess with that later. So, and why? So we're back. Solid infill 0.42, and don't worry about top solid infill or support because there's no top. Overlap by increase. So you only get one perimeter, and sometimes that one external layer doesn't match the infill, so there's a gap. And in order to make this watertight, if you really do want to make it watertight, you'll have to adjust this. This just seems good for me because I'm going to print this on my Mark IIs. My Mark III is going to be used for printing parts for a while. Don't need to worry about bridge flow, don't have to worry about that stuff. Output options. This is something I always change. Now this is kind of cool. They added this recently because you can use something called what's it called? You can use basically a call name. So these are built into Slic3r where you can, it says input file name base. So it's just taking the file name, and then whatever layer height you're printing at, it saves it in text. And then the filament type saves it in text, and printer model. So it tells you that, this is going to be whatever vase. Yeah, variable. Parameter. They call them parameters, but so it's going to say whatever vase, 0.30 millimeters, PLA, Mark III. This is all new stuff that they added. I don't use this. Normally what I do is, because this is I make one for PLA, I make one for PETG for these. I just do Mark III, vase, PLA, and then underscore, and this is where the input name goes. So you're going to add this fun line, so bracket, input, underscore, file name, underscore base, end. So now it's just going to say the Mark III printer, and that's what I like to say. Let's see which printer I'm sending it to. So Mark III, it's a vase, because it's vase mode. This is going to be named a vase mode profile. It's printing in PLA because this is going to be a PLA vase mode profile, and then the name of the object. Notes, none, dependencies. I mean, this will, if you're doing this for the Mark IIs, you'll have a Mark IIs profile added, but you can see that, it has to have these qualifications in order to print. And we're going to save this. So remember, we changed the layer heights. We set on spiral vase mode, which took care of all the things now. They added that as an auto thing. As soon as you add spiral vase mode, it disables all the things that make it not spiral vase mode. But just double check, make sure you don't have any top layers. Make sure you don't have any of this quality stuff turned on, because it doesn't care if there's a thin wall. It's just going to print it at 0.3 millimeters. It doesn't care if you're crossing perimeters because you're spiraling. It's never going to cross any perimeters. And the seam really should be disabled because, I guess the seam is still there for the first layers that you have bottom layers. It doesn't spiral that. But you do want at least 3 or 4 bottom layers because that helps with the structure. Infill has already been set to 0, but just make sure it's 0. Skirt, sport material you can't use. Settings we changed. 60s and 80s. These ones that are red we changed. The rest of them, they don't matter. First layer speed we changed because I just like 20. I think it's safer. And then the advanced, we're using really thick line widths, except for the infills and the solid infill. Only because if you have lots of curves, if you have a 0.6 millimeter line width, there's going to be a lot of holes again. So you want the smallest line width you are safe with, and 0.42 is the safest. We want a little bit more overlap, so that way we don't have bleedy holes for vases. That doesn't matter. And then the output options, again, I name them by the printer what type of file it's going to be. So if it is not a vase, I just leave it as Mark 3 PLA underscore input file name. So it just uses the file name that. As you can see now, they added all the different calls you can do. So all these different placeholders have been added. Come on, show up again. Hover. Well, it doesn't want to hover. Oh, there it is. So you can add all these things. Input file name, you know, minutes, seconds. How it basically will. You can timestamp it, etc. upon etc. So notes dependency don't matter. So we're going to save this. So now we have a 0.3 millimeter MK3 vase mode, PLA vase mode. You don't even have to mode, just PLA vase. So now we have our setting for that. And we can always go back to it. We can always go here and select our vase mode. I already have a PETG vase mode, as you can see, because I like printing them in PETG since you can put water on it. PLA is biodegradable. I usually use vases to store things in. I have my keychains, a lot of my keys in it. So do we need any filament settings? Not really. The stock PLA ones has everything you need. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing you have to do. So, and this is, again, you don't have to make a vase mode profile for the filament. You just need to make sure these are set for you. So you need to make sure your diameter is correct, extrusion multiplier. My Mark 3 that I'll be sending it to is this. For most PLAs, I've found has been pretty good. I have an average. And then these temps are fine. The material I'm going to use is, I'm going to print some more in polyalchemy. I have 2 more rolls coming from printed solid. And these temps work just great. I didn't see any layer issues. I didn't see any debonding. So 210 worked fine. Cooling, fine. It's PLA, maximum everything. Don't go slower than, you know. Yeah, dude, that polyalchemy is sick stuff, Sonic. I've stayed away from it because I've heard people have issues with it, but I ended up picking up a roll from printed solid, and I was like, it looks gorgeous, let's print it. And it, first print was amazing. I haven't done actual prints with it, but I have seen other people in the forums use it. But in the plus or minus 0.05, I believe. I can actually just triple check. Actually, I can't leave that screen. I got to check on the other computer. This is why I have 2 computers right here. So polyalchemy. There it is, polyalchemy. But it should be plus minus 0.05. They do have the new Gold Rush, which looks super gold. I don't know if you guys have seen the new gold one. It's super good. I know it looks orange on the website, but yeah, plus minus 0.05. By the way, the Prusa filament is plus minus 0.02, which is insane. And it's really nice stuff. I've probably gone through a kilogram of the silver and black. So, yeah, it's really nice filament. It's nearly the same formulation as Filamentum. But the guy from Filamentum, which is funny, his name is Joseph, the guy who owns Filamentum, the main owner of Filamentum. He oh, that's right, they added the if-then statement in here now. He's the one who helped Prusa set up their equipment, so. And fun fact, you can't patent a 3D printer filament color. They all come from a color house, so I think the only one who has an upper hand is Color Fab, so I know everyone's kind of seen the ads because they're they're everywhere, where they do the color on demand. Well, Color Fab is owned by one of the largest. Yeah, Brett, the spooling is ridiculous, but the Color Fab's owned by one of the largest color houses in Europe, so they kind of have a disposal themselves to be like whatever color we want. So it's a nice bonus. All right, let's do this. This is the stuff where people are like, what did you do and why? So I just get rid of that. The firmware version doesn't matter. Most people have the most current firmware. You should. I know there was issues in the beginning with some of the firmwares, but lately it's just been rock solid. And if none of these profiles are really firmware dependent, so you can do whatever you want. The firmware doesn't care. Helium polymers. That sounds right. I mean, I can't remember who it is. I just had the conversation with Matt from 3DX Tech because I asked him if he can get similar colors as Filamentum and stuff, do some more glitter fill and things, because literally the two brands are using glitter are Protopasta and Filamentum, and then a couple of the Chinese not knockoff, but a couple of the Chinese filament like Ziltech and Ziru, Z-I-R-U. I bought a roll of their black, they call it black marble, but it was literally black with giant chunks of glitter in it, which it clogs pretty easily, so I printed it pretty slow and it worked. Yeah, so your start G code should always have M83 first. Just always, because we're going to need that. So this is an area that I changed. These temps, in order to not have, yeah, the results were really cool. The temp, I like to do something that I've seen a lot of other people do, and I got the inspiration from other people who are doing it already, which is to set the bed temperature, set the first nozzle temperature below the melting point. So for PLA and PTG, both are 160, so I just picked a number. 170, 160 works. Yeah, Color Fab is the one that does do the color matching, which is insane. Send them a Pantone number and boom, here's your purple 50 whatever number. So the first thing we need to do is we do need to remove that. We need to do our temperatures manually for the first one. So we need to do an M109. So M109 just says set temperature, don't wait. So M109, S, and then the temperature we want to set it to. So this is PLA, so S160. That just means we're going to set the temperature. 109 means extruder, so the extruder temperature is going to go to 160. We're going to hit our semicolon and just say set extruder to 160 C, and it means no wait. So it's not going to wait for anything else. If you do 190 over here, as you can see, that's a wait. That means it won't do anything until it reaches that temperature. We're going to just delete all that because we're going to do it manually, and we're going to talk about it. The next one we're going to need is an M140. And M140 is set bed temperature, no wait. So M140, next we're going to flip these. I'm going to do the bed first and then the extruder. So M140. Is it M140 or M104? Should be M104. I think this is incorrect. No, it is 140. So M140, S, and then the bed temperature is just a call. So you're going to add your, oop, I always forget, it's not the shift on that, so S, and then it uses the parameter first layer underscore bed underscore temperature. Make sure I spelled that correctly. Yes, did spell that correctly. And this is set bed temp, and that is a no wait. So yeah, we're setting our bed temperature first, and that's just whatever we have it set to, which was 60. So it's going to go, okay, extrude to relative mode. Then it's going to go M140, which just says, hey, what temperature do you want the bed set to? And we're setting it to, but we're not going to wait. We don't care to get to temp. So before it gets to temp, it's going to then set the extruder to 160C, no wait. Which is, again, says we're setting the extruder to 160 degrees Celsius. And we're not going to wait for the next command. And then we're going to do an M190, which is the final little bit here. So M190 and S. Bracket. And then first underscore layer underscore bed underscore temperature. Boom. And this is set bed to temp wait. So it's going to wait for it to reach max whatever you set your bed temp to before it goes to the next step, which is your home all mesh, your mesh bed leveling things. So we can actually just save that from here. So what we've done here is, again, relative mode. We deleted the firmware, call, because, again, just always use the most update firmware unless someone says it's bad. Lately, it's just been rock solid. So we're going to do a call for the bed temperature without waiting, because we want the next step to happen immediately as well. So it sets the bed temperature, then sets the nozzle temperature, and then it says, hey, wait for the bed temp to reach temperature you set. So we set it to set it to 60 degrees Celsius. So yeah, it's going to look for this. And I think if I hover over this, will that tell me? Yep, there it is. It says the parameter name. Parameter name is first layer bed temperature, so you know what to call it when you want to call it. And here's the other one, which is first layer temperature, which that's the parameter for your nozzle. So yeah, extruder in relative mode. We're setting it to 60. We're saying warm it up, don't wait. Warm up the nozzle to 160, don't wait. And then let's get the bed to temperature, and we're going to wait for that. We're waiting for that bed temp to get to 60C. Once it gets to 60C, again, we don't care if the nozzle made it to 160, but we do care that the bed makes it to 60, because that will alter how you get your mesh bed leveling. So as the bed heats, the bed will expand and contract, and things will move and shift. So you want it to get to temp. We can even set a wait, so it waits like 10 seconds or 30 seconds before it does a bed level. This is pretty good. I mean, this will, if you're using things like the Octoprint plugins for mesh bed leveling, make sure that it's to temp. Make sure that it's been stable for a little bit, because your bed isn't fully in its shape while it's heating or when it's cold. So yeah, make sure that that's a little tip for everyone. Don't do your bed temps or your bed leveling unless the bed is to temp, because it will continue to shift if your bed isn't to temp. And then it's going to do a home all. Yeah, you do, Chris. You should do that. So home all, and then it's going to do the mesh bed leveling. And the nice thing is the mesh bed leveling parks the nozzle on the bed, or very close to it. So this is why it's a no ooze startup. So it's going to do the bed mesh bed leveling while the nozzle is too cold to ooze, and then it parks the nozzle the first layer height off the bed. So if it does dribble, it's going to dribble only in that spot, and then it stops the pressure from being able to push the filament out. And then we're going to do this purge line. So you can use the stock purge line. I alter the purge line. I prefer to do a little purge bubble, where if there is anything stuck on the nozzle, it kind of pushes a bunch of little extra filament out, and then it drags that off, and it could drag off, you know, little bits of filament off there. But because we're doing the mesh leveling before, we also need to set the nozzle temp now. But because we're doing that without that, you shouldn't have little bits. But if there's bits left over from the previous thing, that's if you wait for the mesh bed leveling, you shouldn't have any dribbles and stuff. And we can do stuff with the NG code that will make sure you don't. Yeah, that method works great for PTG, because that thing will just ooze whenever it wants to. You can do as much retraction at the end of a print, and it's still going to ooze. So, okay, we have our start G code almost done. We need to add the temp. So we need to do an M109. So M109, we're going to actually just call the final temperature. So M109 S bracket and first underscore layer underscore temperature bracket and colon, semicolon, wait for first layer temp. So this is the final command. So we've got the bed, we got the nozzle to 160, we got the bed to temp, we did the mesh bed leveling. Now we got to get the extruder to temp. So this is just get our extruder to temp. It's going to wait until it gets to temp, stabilize, and then start your printing process, which will be a purge line. So we'll just keep the purge line. And looks like Prusa did add an if-else statement here for your flow. So if it sees a layer height equal to 0.05, it's using a 100% flow. If it's any other layer height besides 0.05, it uses 95. We can leave that. That doesn't matter. We just need to go back to our print settings and change our right here somewhere. No, wait, filament settings. We can just leave that at 1 then. Excuse me. And we can adjust this however we want. 0.95 flow or 0.95 extrusion multiplier. This is the same kind of thing. That will work on either one. So you can pick or choose. I prefer this will work. This makes it a little bit simpler. And then we have to do our NG code. So everything on the NG code is pretty good. It's going to wait. You're going to turn off the bed, turn off the nozzle. Yeah, turn off the nozzle, turn off the heat bed, turn off the fans. And Prusa has this fun thing, which is it moves the print head up only if there's room to. So the printer knows the last layer height it was at. And this will check to make sure your layer height's not at, 200. If it's at 200, it won't raise it. If it's below, let's see, max print height. So basically, it's just not going to raise the print head up if it's going to crash. So this 30 will make sure you are good. You're just going to raise the nozzle up a little bit. You can change that. I mean, you can do plus 50. The plus 30 has been working fine. You just want to make sure your last print has the nozzle at the end up higher than it was before, because you want that pin to probe to stay cool. The higher the better. I used to set it to, go all up to 200, Z200. And that's fine. You can do that too, but people have filament spools on the top of their frame. And when the top of the frame spool and your extruder comes all the way up, sometimes the filament will unspool. That's just bad. So we just leave that. I will add one thing. So after the turn off the fan, I like to do a little mini retract. And the mini retract just makes sure it doesn't ooze after the print. So it's going to turn off the nozzle, turn off the bed, turn off the fan. That's all instantaneous. And then we're going to add a G1 F1000. And that's going to set our feed rate for how quickly we want this to happen. And then we're going to do a G1, E -3 to say, hey, we're going to retract 3 millimeters of filament. And this is the retract. And this will just stop it from oozing at the end. And then we can go into our print head up move. And then, of course, disable motors at the very end because we can't disable the motors if it's moving. So make sure disable motors always is the last thing on this because then none of this other stuff will happen. So that's what I do there. Start G code is really simple. Do it on one line. What? I'm not crazy. I don't know. No one lines. There's a new setting here. So if you noticed, there's no settings for jerk and acceleration. You can do those manually. But now Prusa added 2 sections here. So they added a machine limits, which basically says at full power, what do you want the maximum jerk and acceleration settings to be? Oh, combined feed rate and retraction. Yeah, you can do that. I like to write it on each separate line, so if people want to adjust it, they can understand what it is. And that's just for me too. This tells me, hey, this is the feed rate. If someone just sees G1 F1000 E -3, they might not get it. I might not remember what it is. I have a horrible memory. Coding isn't my thing. Yeah, visually easier to read. So we have some new max feed rates here. So Prusa has changed some things, moved some things, but these are the newest settings. On the previous one, they went crazy. Some of these went to 9,000. So they've now toned it back down in this latest version. I just installed this. I just updated. Just download the latest settings for this. So you can go higher than 1,000 for maximum X, Y, Z, and E. Again, these are just maximums. One thing that you do want to change is the maximum acceleration of your extruder and the maximum, not feed rate, but the maximum jerk. So this is one of the things I found for print quality is to get a smoother print, you need your extruder to be moving smoothly, and you can't do that if your accelerations can go too fast. So I usually set this around 180. These I don't really mess with. You can, well, I haven't really tested them. I've never actually ever seen a maximum acceleration while extruding mode, so I've never actually messed with that. This is correct for maximum jerk. This is correct for the Z. And for the maximum jerk of E, I read an article and some guy was getting some really smooth prints. I did some tests and he was right. The little less jerk in the extruder axis definitely tones down printing aberrations. The downfall being is you can't print as fast. So these will all limit each other. So if you set, let's say you set your print speed to 200 millimeters per second, it still has to look at this. You'll never get to 200 millimeters per second with a maximum jerk of 0.33 and a maximum acceleration of 180. Around 80 to 100 millimeters per second is about the maximum this will print safely. If you print faster than that, this will not keep up. You will have to change these, and that's why in the profile I made, everything is slowed down. You do have a couple things that slow you down. One is these acceleration settings. And then, of course, if we go back to our print settings and we go to, where is it? There's something. I'm always horrible at finding the setting. I change things constantly, but I don't remember where the settings are. There it is. It's right here. It was a max volumetric speed. So based on your filament's density and such and sizes, it does some math. So Slic3r is pretty cool. It'll do some math. The downfall being is the Mark III and an E3D V6 hot end with PLA typically maxes out at this volumetric speed. I haven't seen it get there, and this is something I might tweak and play with later. But this is another way you can make sure your printer doesn't have skipping issues or too thin of a line when it's printing, because you're going beyond the volumetric speed, how quickly the hot end can melt the plastic and push it through the extruder. There's a limit to that, and this is technically the limit on an E3D V6. But you can tone this down and it'll slow everything down. If you accidentally change this to a 2, you will not print very fast because it'll look at this. No matter what you have at your print settings for speed, volumetric speed, you know, is your cap. And then again, in your machine limits, there are caps. So in this profile, if you're changing these two, the max jerk and max acceleration of the extruder, these things come into play. The printer will not go beyond this no matter what setting you set for speed. And it's kind of cool. It's actually pretty helpful. You can tone down how, you know, just how smooth. You can make the movement of the extruder smoother. And that's just one of the tricks. I've messed with this a million times. This has been the best. I think Prusa's actually changed some things. They had the max jerk at, used to be at 4 millimeters per second. They've toned it down to 2.5. And they've toned down the acceleration on the E before, but they boosted it back up. There's a benefit to both. If you increase the acceleration, you can print faster, but you will get more missed steps, and missed extruder steps aren't worth, you know, and you'll see them. When your extruder's clicking on fast moves, it's because it's trying to accelerate and jerk well beyond what the motor can handle. So toning these down are fun, but that's basically it. I mean, don't mess, you know, some of the stuff you can mess with. You know, I do leave the retraction at 0.8. If you have a mosquito, it's half of this. I printed PLA at 0.2 retraction. I had very little stringing, so it's pretty insane switching from that. The lift Z I always leave on with PLA only because PLA curls. I turn this off on PETG because PETG won't curl unless you turn the cooling up too high. PETG will sag. PLA curls. So if you have really poor cooling and it doesn't freeze the filament in place, the edges will curl on a harsh overhang. So make sure to leave your lift Z on if you're ever worried about the print hitting something. It's filaments are weird, but that's a nice thing about PETG. That's why I print a lot more in PETG than I used to, is because you can print pretty harsh overhangs in PETG, and all you have to do is slightly increase the cooling. Because remember, on PLA, you need maximum cooling. On PETG, you need 30% or 40% cooling. If you really want to hit hard overhangs, boosting it to 50 or 60% cooling will get you there, and you still have room. So you could print quicker and use a little bit more cooling, and still get some really successful prints. PLA, you have limitations. You can only print as fast as, let's see. Yeah, the official one sucks on the mosquito. I had it on, but Sando, he made a new one. I'm running that one now. So basically it uses the exact extruder as the Mark III. So you can use all the Mark III cooling options. It does block the nozzle now, but at least you can use it right away. So now I can test it, because that was the problem with, I couldn't test PLA because the fan shroud they had on there, you couldn't cool worth a darn PLA. It worked fine for PETG. It worked horrible for PLA. And don't mess with that. Retraction speeds, if you're having extruder clicking issues, one of the things I found is you can slow this down to 25 millimeters per second. You probably won't get any stringing with PLA. With PETG, you might have to leave it here just because PETG likes a quicker retract. But if you're having clicking issues, this is something that I found helps with people who've had it. And I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's, there's still, you know, I talked to Shane from Prusa, and I watched the forums, and people have clicking issues, and I've sent profiles that are specifically slow down. They lower the retraction, they slow down the retraction speed, and they lower the jerk and acceleration of the extruder, and they don't get any more clicking anymore. And I don't know if that's just that motor isn't as good, or there's an alignment issue, or there's heat creep, and this just kind of helps not force filament in too quickly into the hot end, which causes a skip. So yeah, this is an option where if you are having clicks, I would start here and definitely do the machine limits and mess with the accelerations and jerk speed. I wouldn't go below these settings, because then you won't be able to print fast at all. You'll be capped off at 30 millimeters per second, and you basically have a monoprice maker select straight out of the box without any of the fun mods. because I have one of those, and you can't print much faster than 40 millimeters per second ever. Retract on layer change, wipe. I do. So this is where I found Prusa did, well, not, I don't think Prusa did this, but where Slic3r works better than Simplify 3D is you have wipe and coast in Simplify 3D, and both help, except for they don't work as you would think. You would change it. You'd think changing a little bit would be a big improvement. Sometimes you need a 4 millimeter wipe to get a good clean seam. Sometimes you need a 3 millimeter coast to get a clean seam, and you have to edit 2 settings. Slic3r uses a moving retraction, so it actually moves the layer up for that retraction. So it almost kind of folds it over crisscross, which really hides the seam. The only thing I've ever adjusted is this retract amount before wipe. So that's basically your coast. Whichever one says I'm going to retract a little bit before the end of the retraction, or it turns off. You don't need wipe and coast with linear advance, but actually what's funny is it helps. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to need wipe and coast, but every profile I've seen that looks really good on Simplify 3D has a little bit of one or the other. And it's machine specific, and it's saying let's do that. Oh, dad 3D printing jokes. This is good. This is good. But yeah, I add a 5 to 10% retract amount before wipe. The Mark IIs, I usually leave that at a 5%. Mark III, I do a 10%. I will do that here. I haven't tuned it for the polyalchemy filament. I don't even know what the seams look like because it did such a good job. I do have a print coming right now. If you see on the right hand of the screen, the gold low poly skull cup holder or pen holder. That was printed in filamentum gold. Gold happens. You can't see a layer seam with the 5 or 10% additional retraction before wipe. So, yeah. But wipe is basically built in to Slic3r. You can either turn it on or off. I leave it on and I add a little bit of retract before the wipe. So basically it pulls a little bit of filament away, finishes the line. There's no pressure in the nozzle, which just helps linear advance a little bit. It's not perfect. It does do a really good job. It's tuned well, but extruder color, that's just gross. Let's pick something cool. There we go. Don't ask me. I just like a better color extruder. Notes, this doesn't matter. And dependencies, yeah. So we now made a new, oh, we gotta save that. So this is not, so what I just do is I just do Mark III PLA. I should probably name it something. Mark III PLA normal for now. Because I probably have something already named PLA, Mark III PLA for settings. But now we have a vase mode setting. So we have what we need for speeds, what we need for layer lines. We can slice this now, which should be a little bit quicker because it doesn't have to do infill. It still probably take forever because it looks like they had a lot of triangles. Whoever exported that sent a pretty high-end model in there. Yeah, it's going a little bit quicker. Yeah, it's a lot quicker. Still trying to do all those triangles and turn them into lines and keep on going. Look at the layers. Oh, there we go. So yeah, this is our preview. And you can see it is an empty vase. If we flip it on upside down, we can take a look at where the gaps are going to be, because you can see, there we go. You can see there'll be a couple gaps. And that's why you do the overlap higher. You can probably increase that overlap a little bit more. But other than that, the model looks good. We definitely want to look in vase mode. A lot of guys will make these really ornate vases, and they are meant for much larger nozzle, like a 0.8 millimeter nozzle or larger. So if you get massive overhangs with one single layer, that's going to be hard. But you can tell right off the bat this is going to be a pretty simple print. There shouldn't be any issues. Let's take a look inside a little bit. Yeah, there's not going to be any issues. But overall looks good. We'll hit export G-code. And what's cool is there it is, MK3 Vase PLA. And then it's named the Prusa PLA Vase Dominic's. Okay, so we're just going to name it Prusa Vase. We'll save that on our desktop. And save. And then eventually when it's finished exports, we're going to have all these fun things. And it'll tell us speeds and these high poly count. I'm going to pick something with less poly count next time. This is insane. This is really long for a vase. Prusa, you'd have to go so crazy. Let's go export. Let's see what's going on Facebook. Facebook. Going on my other computer to look at Facebook. Alright. Ooh, someone made a fabric thing. See? You guys are always doing cool. That is taking forever. There we go. So let's take a look here. There might be an error. There is an error with the model. So this is probably why it's not working very well. You can see missing slices in there. It's something you should always do. Always check your preview. There it is. See that? There's a missing layer. Sad panda. Oh, there's a couple of them. Looks like we have a couple. Yep. More missing layers. And you're probably like, oh, I had a clog. Nope, you had a bad model that someone made. So we're going to have to mesh mixer this. I love mesh mixer. And it still might fix it. So this is one of the issues with vase mode is you have to check these things. I have printed a few vases and this happens. This is one area where Simplify 3D does better. Is it does, I think, outer shell stuff like this tends to be better. I haven't had, when I use Simplify 3D more, the vases seem to work perfect. I get more issues with Slic3r with when they don't have a proper mesh. So we'll need to go to Mesh Mixer to finish this off. But the good news is we know this will take 2.5 hours to print this Giganto vase. It'll be super pretty. It'll have nice big thick lines. You'll be able to see them, which always looks cool. But yeah, there's a hole there too. What? Man, you guys made a really bad model. Look at that hole. There's just a hole. Just a random hole. Son of a gun. Yeah, we'll do that later. But now we have a profile for faces. Good to go. What else can we do? Let's clear this. Let's remove this thing that doesn't have a proper slicing. Look at that. It says Prusa Research on there, and it has a mesh mixer issue. All right, delete all. Let's load a better thing. Ah, I saw somebody print this the other day. This is the Blink Fox. This thing is a really cool model. Yeah, I'm not sure what most of the slicers use to convert. Whatever it is, they all do it differently, and that makes me sad. I think I've mentioned to Joseph, like, why doesn't someone come up with a standard? All slicers act this way. Please make models always do this. But it seems like that's too much to ask. Yeah. So we're going to slice this thing. And a lot of people ask, I want to you know, really want to get some detail, and you know, I need supports, and supports are hard. So this one does have some supports. You can already tell that this is going to be a painful experience. The nice thing is it's its own little section. This belly will probably be a trouble section. These little areas in the back of the tail, it's not going to be too bad. It's going to be rough. It might be able to do that. I don't think it will. I'm not going to trust it. So I'm going to add some supports from the bed only, because that won't make it worse. I will leave it this size, though. This is actually a really nice size for this print. I don't know what I'm going to print it in, but we're going to print it. So let's again pick a stock profile. You know, I've had good luck with supports, and we're only going to do it from the bed. So we're only going to have to clean up these little sections. It's not going to go probably past these feet here. So it's not going to reach the chin, and the chin looks like that should print fine. Just from observation, that should print pretty well. So let's get started. Hey, I did an Angus thing. Let's pick a stock profile again. So let's pick their optimal profile. We'll leave this normal profile because we've already done that magic. We can leave the Prusa PLA because that's fine. Infill density, we'll mess with that later. So we're going to make a nice profile for printing you know, objects like this. So print settings, layers and perimeters. First layer height, we'll leave that. Those things are fine. You notice Prusa uses a taller first layer height, and that's just safe. So if you have a bed that has some not so great flatness, having a taller first layer height will help. If you don't care so much about it being 100% to scale accurate, you can boost this up. You can use a 0.25 millimeter first layer height. You can use a 0.3. And all that will do is give you a little bit more room for a bad surface. Do not, by any means, if you try to print a, you know, something at 0.05, don't set this to 0.05. You will shred that well beyond. There's no bed flat enough for that. And I've printed on glass before, and I've printed on any cubic ultra base. I've printed on tape. I've printed on PI. It's just 0.2. For this, I'd probably do 0.15 because 0.2 is pretty huge, but yeah, 0.2 is good. If your bed's really bad, 0.3, 0.25. And then we have to do some math. So again, let's bring the calculator out here. We want at least 1 millimeter for our top layer, minimum. So if we divide that by 0.15, we're going to get 0.666667, and that's why Prusa has set 7 top layers. If we wanted 1 millimeter and we had 0.2 millimeter layer height, we need 5. That's just a general rule. You want to have at least a millimeter of top layer surface, and that's going to help a lot with your finish. If you're getting that pillowing or you're getting some weird artifacts on the top, bridging is really hard across infill, especially if you don't have good bridging parameters or the filament is just being weird. Bottom layers aren't as important, in my opinion. I think 3, 4 is good. 5 is for something that you need to be very sturdy. I always do 3 or 4. Quality things. So this is where the printer does some things that, where Slic3r does things good and bad. So, and I'll show you. So ensuring the vertical shelf thickness will do something that is not always desirable. Detect thin walls isn't going to be a problem on this model. We don't have any thin walls that are going to come up. This is basically a large shape, so don't worry about that. We don't need any bridging perimeters. Seam position, I always pick aligned. And all aligned means, if we hover over this, is going to try to find It's going to try to find something to tuck itself into. So nearest is going to be closest to you, rear is the back, random is, again, it's going to be random. Align is my favorite because it's going to try to find a seam. So most likely when we see the end of this file, it's going to try to put all the retraction marks in these grooves here, up here, and then it's going to try to find whatever the harshest line is. It's going to try to find a place to put, so it'll be behind the ear here. So it won't be as noticeable. That's how I tend to like it. The only downfall is sometimes it does it wrong, so that's why we have to check some things. So print settings, infill. We are not going to need 20% infill. 10%, this will be a nice sturdy print. It's going to help us out with some of these top layers. I wouldn't go lower than that on this one unless we did a modifier mesh. This beginning section could use a little bit. You know, the middle could use less. But right now we're going to keep it simple. I need to learn modifier meshes better so I can actually be competent in it. Fill pattern, this gets tough. I really like gyroid because it's strong, but gyroid does have a problem. And I'll show it to you and we'll do some things, but when it wants to put, like let's say where's it going to be a problem? It might be a problem coming up to the ears or anything like the legs too. It doesn't give enough infill in certain things because it's strong for what it is. So it might not be perfect, but we'll leave it at gyroid for now. We don't need to do any of that. Skirt and brim. We do not need 3 skirt layers. We need 1 skirt layer. Support material. We will need to generate support. And yes, we will put that bridging perimeters on. Enforce supports for the rafts. Nope. Contact Z distance. So this is where you can change things. But notice that it automatically picked a contact Z distance of 0.15. You can't really have a contact distance smaller than the layer height, because if you think about the print, and this is with all, you can change this to whatever you want, and you'll never have it get to the value you want it to. It's going to get close, but if you're printing layer by layer, it would have to dip or raise during just the Z height would have to change up or down and undulate in order to get contact Z distances that are closer than the layer height. And we'll be able to look at this in the final model, and a lot of people are like, well, the preview doesn't show me closer. This is where certain things are we'll take care of. Rectilinear, I change it to rectilinear grid. Grid is a little bit stronger, and it won't fail. The one thing I noticed about rectilinear, it just paints a zigzag line, a squared zigzaggy line, kind of like the first layer calibration, where it's just zigzaggy. Rectilinear grid uses the grid pattern like you would in an infill. It's a little bit sturdier, and it still snaps off. If you're having issues with your I forgot that thing feature. If you're having issues with your supports and they're falling apart, switch to rectilinear grid. You can even add a sheath around it, and that just adds a little bit more strength. It still will pop off almost as easily. Pattern spacing, I leave it at 2, blah, blah, blah. Interface layers, and this is where you can really mess around with stuff. I always leave 2 interface layers, and that just adds a little different, like, kind of loopy. So this adds the really close layer between the object and the support material. And then you have that interface loops, which, if we highlight this, will tell us this adds a little layer on top of those contact points for everything to grip onto a little bit better. I leave those on. We do only want support from build plate only. XYZ compensation. I like how the default's 50, but they have it set to 60. We are going to go to 50. We are not going to support any bridges first. We're going to take a look at that, and we're not going to synchronize. That's for multi-material stuff. Speeds, perimeters. 45 is not bad. They've switched a lot of this stuff around. Some of the stuff's insane. Like infill, we can go to 100. Solid infill, we can go to 80. And top solid infill, this is a lot of, if you have a dull top finish and a shiny, sheeny outside, this is where the issues come in. So top solid infill, We want that to match whatever our external perimeter speed is, if you want them to match. So if you don't want to have the top of your print looking different than the bottom or the sides of your print in terms of sheen, you want those to match. I'm going to pick a 20 for external perimeters, actually 25, and top solid and fill 25. And basically we're just going to not get into the resonance speeds of the motor. 30 millimeters per second seems to be where it resonates. This will be a little bit better. Support material, that's a good speed. And gap fill is fine, bridges are fine. Good. Travel, that's too fast. We don't need to go that fast because we have supports and we don't need that thing flying around knocking things off. First layer speed again 20. I'm a 20 person. Everything else can stay the same. You don't need that. Advanced. I do everything at 0.42. 0.42. 0.42. 0.42. Oh, infill we can do bigger. That makes it stronger. 0.5. 0.42. 0.42. Now this is one that, again, if you're having issues with your supports, they're too thin, they're breaking apart as you're printing them, you want to increase this. I've actually found that 0.39 is a really good value. Overlap is fine on this. We're not printing really fat layers, so it's not going to mess with anything. Bridge flow I found is better at 0.85. That's just messing around. You can leave that one. That's just me knowing my printer. We're going to change this again. So MK3, PLA, and then underscore, boom, input underscore file name underscore base, and that's just going to export a print that says Mark III with PLA and the actual file name. Notes and dependencies don't matter. We're going to save this as PLA Mark III. Boom. Filament settings will not change. Yeah, there's nothing to change here, and we don't need to change anything in our new printer settings we made. This will stay exactly the way it is. So let's do a slice, and maybe just running this crazy software is killing my CPU. It is using 20% of my CPU to stream, and I'm guessing Slic3r doesn't use your graphics card for slicing. It is faster than the vase though so far. So yeah, it's finished that part, and now it's going to add the supports and infill. See how it's empty? Still doing the infill stuff. It's kind of fun that you can click here and kind of watch what it's still trying to stick inside here. Let's go print. Let's go. So fun. Am I getting messages? Oh, I am. People are messaging me. Oh. The print is, it's on my mini factory. It is called, let me hop on there. My mini factory. And my library. Saved for later. Something eyes. Blink Fox. It is the Blink Fox by Yuka Sapananan. Hey, no problem. I'm learning too, because for some reason I can't remember stuff off the top of my head. So yeah, as you see, we just added supports from the bed, and that's all we needed. It's just going to help us with these little bit of overhangs. It's not digging up into the body. We're not going to have a hard time pulling the supports off. And if we, as you see, we can see the grid pattern there of the supports. But yeah, that will help us with those really hard overhangs that we're going to have. So these ones in the beginning of the bed are going to be a little rough because remember, we have to fight not only the bed temperature, so the bed is leaking 60°C heat up onto the print, and we have to fight, needing the necessary cooling to do that. So this will just help us out by giving us something for the layers to sit on and rest on and not curl all over the place. I don't know why I added a support right there, because that's not from the bed, but whatever. This is good. This is actually perfect. So I'm just triple checking to make sure there aren't any areas that need more support. But I think that's fine. Slic3r does an okay job with supports. Thankfully, the next full revision somewhere here soon will have custom supports. That I'm excited for. I miss it. This works fine. I just kind of band-aid myself and not remember that I need it. But that looks good. And then we can take a look at the infill, make sure we're not going to have any issues with infill. So, yeah, this is where the gyroid becomes an issue. So you notice how it puts this little booger here. See this? This is where rectilinear does a better job because you have corners to work off of. And this is something I've actually chatted with the Prusa devs and stuff like, why don't the... why do we not choose the actual lines to put that blob on? Like, why doesn't it print it from here to here? This isn't going to print. This is going to be an issue. It's going to print in air, catch here, print in air, and then it's going to put the next layer on. Some of that's printing in air, etc. upon etc. So this is where I'm going to say, hey, we need to go to grid pattern because that's going to do a better job. I can increase the amount of gyroid, but unfortunately, the gyroid infill is going to be an issue here. You can also do fast honeycomb if you're really feeling awesome. But yeah, we're just going to change it. So we're going to go to our print settings. We're going to go to our infill. We're going to change it from gyroid to grid or rectilinear. Grid or rectilinear. We'll do rectilinear. And as you can see, it literally just removed the infill. That's what I like about Slic3r. It's already done the math for the shells and everything. So now we'll slice again. Now only has to slice the infill, which is awesome. So I have to reslice the whole gosh darn thing. So I think that's it. Yep, it's got the infill. So let's go. Let's find that little section here again. Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit better. You can see what it does with rectilinear. It paints these outside lines to go around the grooves. So this is where rectilinear does a better job. It does a much better job at getting these little sections to get printed. So you're not going to have things printing in air as much because rectilinear does this. You see this? It helps grab this extra filament that's zigzagging around, and it has more edges to line up against. So this little section will be printing in air, not a big section of this printing in air. So we're going to go with rectilinear on our infill for this one. That will help out a lot. We don't have, it probably will work with a higher gyroid, but why waste filament just to use an infill pattern? But this should be good. We're going to export the G code. And again, it picked exactly what it wrote. MK3, PLA, BlinkFox1. Boom, save to the desktop. And once it's done, it's going to calculate all the magic, and we'll actually be able to see the layer seam. We'll see what it chooses. And this is the only downfall. Once the next version comes out, the math will be done before you hit the slice button, and it'll tell you, or it'll do it before the export, so you don't have to export it, look at the layer seam, be like, I hate the layer seam. Yeah, layer seam should end up back here. So usually what it does is it tries to find things in the back. And retractions. So yeah, these are our retractions. So it found, points in lines to retract at. That's not bad at all. So we're not going to get a bunch on the face, which is good. Its retractions are mostly on the back and tucked away on top of things. So it's hiding the retractions in good spots. It's not putting them mainly on the body, which is good. There's my retractions. Oh, look at that. Travel moves. lots of travel moves. So, good to go. That will print really nice. And it'll tell you the overhangs too. So it's telling us there's a little bit of an overhang here. That's not going to be a problem. A little bit of overhang here. That's not going to be a problem. Or these. This under here is definitely an overhang issue. And you can see it's bright blue everywhere. It doesn't even need this support, it says, based on the logic it's using. But no, this will work fine. I don't think it's going to have any issues printing. We'll send that through later. How many hours? Oh, 15 hours. That's yummy. That's going to be a while. So once I'm done with this crazy skull over here, I'll throw in some filament that's not... I don't think I'm going to use the gold. I'll use something else. But I'll print this fox, and we'll see how it turns out on this. And 15 hours from now is sometime tomorrow. 12 hours is 11 a.m., and 3 more hours is 2 p.m. tomorrow. It should be done. Well, this has to finish still. I don't know how much time it has left. The print over here on the right, this guy. My cursor goes away. And this guy's going to be done at some point. But that's it. That's the basics of understanding Slic3r and its little nuances and how to kind of look at a model. I'm going to sign off for now. This will be saved, so you can always go back and look at it later. And as new releases of Slic3r happen, I will try to keep updated on the new settings. The biggest thing now is the new printer machine limit settings, so you do all of your jerk and acceleration settings here. And they also added what the different parameter names are. So this is the parameter name, infill every layer. So you can change things in G-code just by trying to look up what that is, and you can edit it however you desire in G-code versus using the sliders and buttons. So yeah, sliced. There are no errors. We don't have missing layers like the vase. Maybe I'll do a mesh mixer thing, even though there's probably 900 videos on mesh mixer. So have fun, and I'm going to sign out. Good night.